But the big talking point overnight has been the Brexit. In a major setback, Theresa May's EU withdrawal deal has been rejected by the MPs by an overwhelming majority for a second time. MPs voted down the Prime Minister's deal by 149 votes. CNBC's William Marks reports.
Well, what we've heard from Philip Hammond in recent days is a potential offer that he will make to try and encourage members of his own party to vote through this deal. It's all about trying to show to people across the country that the UK government is no longer imposing austerity measures and that things are more or less back to pre-financial crisis levels. However, it doesn't seem like that is the key sticking point for any of these MPs that have voted against the government in the vote tonight here in London, in fact against the vote 2 months ago here in London. That is still all about the Irish backstop, the potential for the UK to get, in their words, trapped inside a permanent customs union. And what Jumana referenced there, the idea that Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General here in the UK, would change his legal advice, his interpretation of the existing withdrawal agreement in order to say to MPs, you know what, the UK will have a way out of this backstop. If that was to happen, and we've heard from the European side they're not willing to make any more compromises, then we could see this vote go through. In terms of the economic angles, though, it doesn't seem like any kind of pitch from Philip Hammond, which might even be quite half-hearted. He, of course, has not been a massive proponent of the idea of Brexit at all in recent months. The idea that an offer from him would be enough to sway MPs just doesn't seem that credible at this stage.
All right, so what exactly does this mean for the market? Well, here's some opinion coming in on the Brexit vote defeat and what next for Prime Minister Theresa May.
I certainly would think that there's still a chance that we see some form of resurrection for Theresa May's deal, because what I think is likely to happen over the coming days is that Parliament is likely to vote against leaving the European Union without a deal. They're also likely to ask the government to ask the EU for an extension. Now, we don't know what the EU's reaction to that will be. I'm assuming the EU will grant an extension. We don't know yet on what terms. But I think Parliament will again be asked to vote for something very similar to this deal. And the hope, I think, for Theresa May will be saying to her Brexiteers, well, look, you can't have the no-deal Brexit that some of you would prefer over my deal. The alternative to my deal is a very long extension of staying in the European Union. So the least worst option is to back the deal. I'm personally very sceptical of what Labour's position is and how different it really is from what the deal on the table is. I think there are some things that Labour might demand in terms of the political declaration, which is about the future negotiations. But in terms of the withdrawal agreement, which is the legally binding part of the agreement which MPs are being asked to approve in order for us to leave and in order for us to leave with a transition period, I don't really see how Labour can demand any changes to that withdrawal agreement. The EU is going to insist on a very similar agreement. We can put in all kinds of hopes and wishes for what the future might look like, but ultimately that is an issue for discussion in the future once a withdrawal agreement has been passed. And that withdrawal agreement is going to look exactly, well, not exactly the same, but very similar, irrespective of whether you call it a Tory Brexit or Labour Brexit.
All right, so that's as far as the Brexit deal is concerned. Remember, ahead of the Brexit vote, the European markets, they ended mixed ahead of the vote in the Parliament. We had the German index underperforming while the CAC and the FTSE actually ended in the green. What's more important is that there was another plunge that we saw on the pound ahead of this vote. And it'll be important to see how they open rather than how they close, because the close came in ahead of the Brexit vote. And if there is any sentiment of or any gauge of sentiment of how they might open, we're getting early rates from FTSE futures, which is a mild negative, though very low volumes out there. So this is something we'll be tracking. In the Asian markets, the decline has been fairly rapid. Now the Nikkei is sitting with a cut of over 0.1%. We have the Korean index lower by about 1%. We're seeing some strength come back in the dollar yen, as well as the SGX Nifty, which at the start was indicating a 5 to 6 point downtick and now indicates a cut of almost 12 to 13 points. So yes, the decline has come by. The SGX Nifty, in light of that, is outperforming, but the Japanese index as well as the Korean indices, both of them sitting with cuts of over 1% now at the low point of the day.